sorry I'm a little late getting this ready here. The lighting was really hard this morning with the light on. I hope that you can see me. If anybody's on here, if we didn't miss our window, drop a comment in the live. That would be really fun. Just to know you guys are here. So I have Reed with me this morning, and we're talking about shading and Chiaro Scuro. So this afternoon, this was really tricky to get on here and figure out the light because we're talking about shading and light source today and something called Chiaro Scuro. So I hope that this is not backwards, but I have a feeling it might be. So that's just a picture of the idea of light and dark that we're going to be talking about. Yay, hi Karen. So Chiaro Scuro is an Italian term that means light and dark. And so today, if you haven't ever practiced doing shading, that's what we're going to work on. We're going to look at a couple of famous artists who did that really well. And then we're going to create our own masterpiece practice like this, where you're going to find simple objects that are basic geometric shapes and learn how to shade them, and then we'll fill in the background more fun than just a blank white piece in the back. And that way you guys will have skills to draw or doodle or use this shading technique in other things, and also to help you see things differently. So if you've been joining me for the other art lessons, I hope you've noticed a theme of just learning to see things differently. So last week we did Georgia O'Keeffe and just learned to look at things outside the box and drawing. I don't know if you guys were on here doing it. I know I see Lindsay, and I'm not sure if Naren did that one or Sarah if your kids did. But we looked at flowers up close and a piece of bone up close to draw with my kids. And a lot of you sent pictures, and that was really fun to see, but it was hard, wasn't it? Trying to draw big and go off the page is just something that's not normal, that we're used to looking at things. So the same kind of thing today, we're gonna just learn to look at things differently. So whether you end up being a master shader by the end or not is not important to me. I hope that I can give you a few shading skills and techniques. But really, my goal is that you would learn to look differently at things and to notice light and dark and the source of light when you're looking at things, when you're drawing. But also, even more than that, when you're looking at people, that you would learn to see the light in their heart and not only the light that you physically see shining on them. So I don't know if you can notice right now, Reed, there's a light behind him, and I brought in a big... It's a medical light behind him that will hopefully contradict the light that's coming in the windows. It was really hard to get a really bright one so we could have that contrast. But we're talking about Chiaro Scuro, which just means light and dark in Italian. And I wanted to show you a couple famous artists before we get to drawing our piece like this and shade things. I'm going to show you two famous people that painted with Chiaro Scuro. So they were famous Dutch painters, and one was a man named Vermeer. And I don't know if any of you guys have seen this painting before, but it's called The Girl with a Pearl Earring, and it's famous. And he was alive the same time as another man named Rembrandt. Maybe you've heard of him. And he's one of my favorite historical painters from a long time ago. And this is going to be hard to see too. I printed that off, and I don't know if you can see, but the kid right here holding like a candle and the man working over him. Maybe you have seen this famous painting in another book. And it's really hard to see, but it looks like he's doing woodworking. And so the firelight of the candle is shining off the faces. And that's an excellent example of Chiaro Scuro, where you focus on the light and the dark is just so contrasted. And that's what we're going to go after today. And so it's really awesome to look at how famous artists did that. just to learn their skills and what they focus on, and then do it kind of our own way. So I hope that you can get that out of today. We looked at Vermeer and Rembrandt, and we're going to think about how they looked at light and dark. And here's another example. This isn't color, but this just shows you shapes with the light hitting off of different parts of these shapes. Just look at how different that looks. So we're seeing the shading and the color. We have two different colors on there. We're going to focus on just using pencil today, but you could do this too with color if you like it and you're getting the hang of it. So when light reflects and refracts off of different angles, it shows up different, right? And so the main thing that we're going to focus on is our light source. So as you guys can see, the light source shining on Reed is just showing up that side of his face. And if you could squint your eyes, if you can squint your eyes with me and look at Reed or at each other, if you even want to go in a dark room and try this with a flashlight, I almost did that, but it was too hard to get all my windows blacked out, but that would be a fun thing to do too. You go in the dark, or a science project, and you can even have a ball. You could have like a soccer ball or something to look at, and just turn all the lights off and have a flashlight like this light, and just see where the light reflects off of it. It's just one side, and it ends up looking like this. So we're gonna learn how to draw like that today, but first I'm gonna show you different ways to do shading around the edge to show the dark parts. So the light is shining on here, so the light source is shining on one spot, and it gradually gets darker around there. And there's also a shadow that is cast. So I'm going to show you how to do and draw shadows with a pencil. I'm going to use a pencil. Actually, Reed is going to use a pencil because he's doing it down here. I'm going to try to do it with Sharpie so you guys can see it better on this sheet, and I'm going to show you a few different shading techniques, okay? So if you guys could follow along, all you need is white paper. I might do it two places to be able to hold up for you. White paper and a black Sharpie is all I'm going to use, and you can use charcoal, black charcoal that will smear easier, or you can use pencil or the black marker. So you guys can go ahead and try this on your own. I just want you to draw. Let's do this up. We can go ahead. I want you to draw what I'm drawing, and also afterwards, if I go too quickly, when I post this on YouTube, I'm going to put a link to a short time-lapse video that I just made that is going to show you the different shading techniques as well really fast, so you can pause that and watch it as you want if I'm going too fast today. But I'm going to keep moving. I'm going to stop in a couple minutes to take questions, so you guys can follow along. First, what you need to do is, I'm going to pretend this is your paper. So I want you to draw a circle 4 times. Just on top of each other, just 4 circles, and then I want you to draw a triangle shape with it rounded on the bottom so it looks like a cone shape right next to the circles. Watch me. So it's almost a triangle, but then it looks more like a cone because I rounded the bottom. And on the last row, we're going to make another row of squares. And we're going to pretend that our light source for all of these is going to be over here. So I drew a sun so you can remember that the light is shining down on all of these. And I'm going to draw lines. You don't have to do this, but I'm going to show you where those are going to shine onto your objects. So you can tell where you're going to need to shade, where the dark part is. So just a minute, I'm going to turn the light on. Maybe you can see better now. And I don't know if you noticed, but I'm wearing black and white also. I'm trying to wear something every week that is an example of what we're talking about just for fun. So I have total contrast, white and black on today. So you can see that and think about when you look around at objects in your day, start looking for the light and dark places, just like on Reed's face. So I probably should... Actually, I'm going to, you know what, forget this. I'm not doing it on this side. I'm going to put the light source over here so that makes more sense with what you're seeing. So if you can imagine a line coming down on all these objects, watch this. Can you guys see those lines that I'm drawing like that? And that's where I'm imagining the sunlight is shining on all those objects. And so we're going to be doing the shading on the other side, the opposite side, just like this. The same part as this. So we're going to make this happen on all of these with different lines that we're going to do. So it doesn't matter if you have a pencil that you smudge or not, you can use a pen mark to create shading, and I'm going to show you how. So first of all, we're going to learn how to do hatching. It's called hatching. So you could write that up above here. I think it would be backwards if I wrote it, so I'm just telling you that. I'm going to write an H right next to this one. So for all of these, we're going to do hatching across it, and that's just simply making a line to show shading. When you have color built up and lines built up one after another, it creates a shading look. So I'm going to show you on the top row, the circle, cone, and square. If the light's shining this way, I'm going to do the lines on the other side. Go ahead and do it, Reed. And if I want to show that, oh, it looks pretty far away. If I want to show that the circle is actually a sphere, then I'm going to make my lines rounded and curving around the bottom and the middle and the top. I'm going to make them curved. So it's going to look a little bit like this. And you see that? So I'm pretending the sun is up here. This is if you could see up close here. I made simple lines rounding the circle and close together. So I'm going to go ahead and do that on that top row, and you guys can keep going. I hope you can see this. With the triangle cone, I'm also going to round it so it looks like a cone, not just a triangle. That one can be tricky. I will draw it small here too. And remember, you can always play this back later if you need to do it slower, or ask your mom for help, or you can just practice again and again. I've been out of practice of this too. So there's the cone. I'm making it go around the shape so it looks rounded, where the sun is shining, the light source. And lastly, the square, which is just straight across because it's going to be a cube. if I had lines like this to make it look like a cube, it would make a little more sense. I would cover it in like that, but you don't have to do that. That would be the back side if I were to make it a three-dimensional cube. Oops, now I'm in the screen again. I'm going to go on to the next row. I'm going to speed up a little bit because I want to get through this project with you guys. So the next row is going to be cross-hatching. So you're really just doing lines on top of each other the opposite direction or next to each other but going a different way, and that just doubles up the thickness of it, and it just gives it more layers and like a dimension, a different level of it. So I'm going to go the other way. I'm doing it around that way. I'm still rounding the lines, and then I'm going to go that way. Going around just like I did on top, but then I'm adding another direction of lines. And I'm only having it go over about halfway because that light is shining. That source is shining on this side. It wouldn't be dark over there. This last one is the trickiest with the square. You can go the opposite direction. This last square one is the only one that isn't going to really show a shape, and this one is the one that's solid all the way across. So if you imagine another side over here, that makes more sense with the light shining on it. I'll show you. So that way, the light would shine on here, and the dark would be back here. So that square is a little different than the other shapes. All right, and the next one, this one is what takes a long time. This is called, oh, I should write a CH for cross-hatching. And the next one is stippling, S-T-I-P-P-L-I-N-G. And stippling is when you just use a bunch of dots all next together. The closer that you draw them together, that you make them together, the darker that area is going to be. So the closer to the light source, you'll have less dots spread apart, and the closer they are and more, it's going to look darker. So I'll do that up close and show you. This one can take quite a while. This one is hard to do fast, so I'm going to just speed through this one, and you guys can go back and do this later so I can get to your final project you can work on. And this one might take you guys a few hours today to finish, but I'd love to see your finished product. When I get done showing you all 4 types of shading, I want you guys to think if you have any questions. I love that part about this live is different than when I post it on YouTube afterwards, because I like answering questions as if you guys were in an art class. I love it. So if you have any questions, think about it and I'll answer them at the end of this little section. So this is really, really rough. I'm just going to draw this to show you. So there's the sun light source shining on it right there, and I've used a bunch of dots closer together to make it darker and less. And you could do that going all the way around and have a lot more dark, but I'm doing that, trying to be quick at it. So I'm going to write S for stippling. And add that really quick right here. It's really hard not to hurry up and just color it in, but I want you to get the idea. So much stippling. And you can do that on the cone also. The same spots you've colored in, you've done the lines before that, you do it in the same spot on the other ones. And we're going to pretend I did it on that whole square there, but I'm going to move on. So that was stippling, and the last row I'm going to show you. The last one is going to be kind of traditional shading, what you would think of shading. And so I can't really, this is one that you cannot do with a marker. because you can't smear it with your fingers, but this is shading. I'm going to use a pencil and show you up close because that's the difference. I'm going to use just a regular 2B pencil that you guys can have. And what I'm going to do is use the side part of my pencil, the fat part. If you ever want thicker lines rather than a tiny pointed line, you want to turn it to the side. So all that lead, all that graphite can rub on your paper and you don't have to take as much time coloring it all in lines. So I'm going to use the side of my pencil and go around the circle, the edge. And I'll show you that. And however you want to fill that in. And I hold my pencil like that on the side. And I want to go over and over. I rub it back and forth. The darker I want it, the harder and closer together I rub. And look at how messy this one is. I'm going to hold this up close. So that looks really messy there. And then I'm going to use my finger and rub it in. And the graphite that's on there, you can just rub it the same direction that you made the pencil marks. And you go over that with your finger. And it rubs it in and gives it a shaded look. You just want to go in that same direction. And you don't want to cover where your light source is hitting. And you might have to go over it a few times with that pencil. Can you all see that? So I just smeared that with my finger. And now I'm going to do it really quick on the bottom. I'm going to write another SH for shading on the bottom. That's our last type of shading that I'm going to show you. So SH. And now I'm going to use my pencil. Even if you can't see it, I'm just going to get it done here. And remember, your light source, the farther away it is, the darker it is. Now I'm going to take my finger and rub those. You can go ahead and do that. It's hard for you to see probably. Okay, now I don't know if you guys can see that. Hatching, cross-hatching, stippling, and shading. So hopefully that will help you when we move on to your big sheet of paper. You can get out your big sheet of paper now. And I'm going to show you an example again. You can find your own objects if you want to, or you can follow along, and I'm going to draw this on my sheet of paper one at a time. See, they had a square. This is showing it three-dimensional here, and I can show you how to do that right now, or you can do your own. There's the cylinder, the cone that we just practiced. There's another one, but it's turned a different direction. So maybe for today, we'll just do that simple, straightforward direction. There's a circle we just did, and the cube, and there's another shape like a can. So you could find all these objects in your house, and you could go pick up a box, a cardboard box. It doesn't have to be the same size as this. You could get a cone if you have that around your house, or a triangle toy, or you could even use a Lego. For the squares, you could use all Legos if you don't want to try for the curved, if that feels too hard. You could go get a soccer ball and a soup can, and you could stack those in the middle, turn the lights off and have a flashlight, or turn on one light in your room to be shining just like this is. And then in the background, you can add other color. I wanted you to grab a colored pencil or marker or crayon, and you can fill in a design all of your own. So that way you have something that looks kind of realistic, that's fun to learn how to shade and look three-dimensional like a real object. And then you have the background where you can just go crazy and draw whatever you want. And it's really fun to have that contrast of the real and the abstract. Something that maybe isn't real is more your imagination. So it's really fun to combine those. And I also don't want to forget the shadow that each of these cast. That can be kind of tricky. So if you guys are older or middle school, I'm just going to show you how to do that. If you want to try it and you're younger, great. I just don't want that to be frustrating for you. So you know what, when it stops being fun and you learning, then you should just go back and keep doing those other skills till you feel like it's fun to move on. So one last thing, I'm just going to show you how to make the shadows of those if you want to. But first we're just going to draw our shapes onto our sheet. So Reed, let me see your picture. We're gonna share it. So this is Reed's. Can you guys see that? Does yours look kind of like that? He did his sun, his light source, and he had 4 rows. Nice job, Reed. Which one did you feel like was the easiest and which one was the most challenging to do?
I feel like the one with all the dots was the stippling.
Yeah, the stippling was the hardest. What did you like to do with shading?
The shading.
Okay, so he liked the shading one at the bottom the best. Why is that?
I don't know, it's just, it looks the best.
Oh, he likes it because it looks the best. Not because it was easiest, but because he thinks he likes the look of that. So I would love to know in the comments if you guys, which one you like doing. You can put it in the comments, your favorite one that you did. And if you have any questions, I'll just wait to see if anybody has a question on the comments while you get your paper out and your supplies for the new picture. This is kind of small. All right, I'm going to flip this over. I don't see any comments. There it is. That kind of shows through, but we'll just work with it anyway. So I'm going to go ahead and I don't see any questions. Oh, you guys like triangles and cones. Okay, so that's the shape. That's awesome that you like drawing on the triangle cones. But which style shading did you like the best? I'm guessing that's Narn. Is that confusing me? Let's see. I'm going to tape this up here, and this is small, but I'm going to, hopefully you guys can see that, and I will hold it up close when I'm done. But I'm going to draw, go ahead and draw on here. You can do whichever shapes you want to. I'm going to do a circle. That's going to be my ball. I'm going to do a cone. I'm going to do a cube back here that's pretty big. And I'm going to do another cone here. And I'm not having any of those overlap just to make it a little easier. Some of you like stippling and shading. Cool. So I'm going to add some dimension to these. The cones are easy enough to add the shading and add dimension to it, make it look rounded, and the circle. But the square I'm going to turn into a cube. So if you guys want to draw a line out like that, any angle that you want is going to be your cube. And then you want to make a line parallel to that out the bottom. And then connect it straight up and down, parallel with this one. So if that's too tricky, you can ask your mom to help you. We're just having these parallel lines here, and then the other lines in the same direction makes it into a cube. So now I'm going to add my shading with my pen. I'm not going to do shading with the pencil. I'm going to use my cross hatching on all the objects. And imagine your light source is over here. So you probably don't want to put your light source on the sheet, but you can if you want to, just remembering where that goes. I'm adding cross hatching over here because it would be the darkest on the back side of my cube. showing this really quickly so you guys can get going, but you could spend a lot more time on this. And the sunlight shining here is hitting this back side, if you can imagine, the back side of the cube. So there's only a little bit of shading on the top and the bottom. I'm just going to do less lines. I'm still putting the lines on, but I'm doing less lines. And the light source is coming this way. Remember, on your cones, you want to do it the shape of your cone, so it's going to be rounded. You're not drawing on a flat object, it's a rounded object. If you want it to look rounded, comes around there. Same thing over here. And now my circle is going to be closer, so the light actually is shining down more on that one than the farther away cones. You guys are doing great. Thanks for sticking in there with me. And now that you guys can see those, I'm going to add another line straight across the back to give it dimension. See how the line comes along the back? You don't want to draw through your objects. You want to pretend it's behind them. So you want to stop when it gets to your object and skip, and then where it would connect behind. See those lines? That's the background. You want to imagine it going through. I didn't do that very well, because that has to be on something. I'm going to make it dark so you can see it. So you guys can see that sitting on that line. And now the background, you can add the background design that you want. I'm going to pick up a color, hopefully that you guys can see. I'm going to pick up pink, bright pink. You can pick one or two colors. I'm going to do pink and green in the background, and I'm just going to make a design. You can add that whatever you want. Just using my imagination. Okay, so here's our example. So I took you guys from Rembrandt, who started out this masterpiece, the light shining on the dark. So that's something that we can work towards doing, light on faces. If you want to go for something challenging, You can try to do that with a person. You could go in a dark room with like your mom or your daughter, or your brother or sister, and shine a flashlight on them and try to draw just the dark and light. You could practice shading or just the light part with a white marker or a white crayon or chalk on black paper would be really cool. So I hope that you guys got the idea of just looking at your light source, looking at these famous artists and anyone else that you have around your house, maybe on books that you see, or if you look outside and notice the sunrise and sunset in a different way, so you notice where the light source is coming from and hitting on objects. Just like this, how we practice that. This is what you can start with practicing and then move on to add even the shadow underneath, which reminds me I need to add that here. The light source, you're going to have the shadow the other direction. And it's going to be the shape that your object was. So you can move on to adding the shadow, and you can do fun, silly projects like this with your imagination, and then mixing things that you learn and skills, or you can move on to harder subjects like people that you're looking at. But either way, I hope you guys had fun today and can go practice this on different things in your house. And more than anything, I wanted to end with saying just thank you for doing this with Reed and me. And I just want to remind you that we have a real light source that's inside of us, and each of you, when you go outside to look at it, I want you to even look not just on the outside at the actual light shining on somebody, but even you kids, if you look at your siblings or your parents, people in your home, especially when we're kind of closed up and you might be getting frustrated at home with your brother or sister, or even your parents, you're getting kind of sick of them, or it gets hard to be around the same people. And sometimes it's just easier to see the dark stuff, isn't it? And the things that are frustrating or harder to be used to. And so I just wanted to remind you guys at the end of this, looking at the light source, to remember what your light source is. Remember the goodness and what comes from outside of us and shines on us and each other. And so to look for the bright things, the light in each of your siblings and your family. So I hope that blesses you today, and go look for the light source around you and in your family. Hope you guys have a great day. Bye. Don't forget to post your pictures too when you're done. I'd love to see them.